Hey, happy Monday, Damon. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great, Kurt. Ready to go. Great week started.
Great. Man, it was a good sports weekend, wasn't it?
My goodness. Yes, it was.
Ron, it's been happy Monday to everybody. Welcome to Stop Being the Best Kept Secret. We have a dear friend, repeat
Yep.
offender on the show today, Ron Higgs. And this guy, I tell you, if you Google integrity, you're going to see our dear friend Ron Higgs. If you go to Ron Higgs' LinkedIn profile, you're going to see this big fighter jet going across his banner. And guess who, Damon, do you know who's inside that banner? Inside that fighter
I
jet?
believe it's Mr. Higgs.
It's Mr. Higgs himself. So, Ron, how are you, dude?
I am doing great. Thank you for that introduction. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's always so much fun.
Well, I tell you, I've got two dudes in Seattle right here. And so I don't know, Damon, anything exciting, anything new going on in Seattle right now? Or?
Yeah, we have a little baseball action happening in Seattle. Lots of stress, lots of fun.
Yeah. So, Ron, you know what? I checked out the last time you were on the show. It was actually like Father's Day. So we were talking baseball then. That was like 3 years ago.
Nice.
And so we got Ron back on the show. Ron, what's new and exciting? What's happening in your life since you've been on? A few changes. And we're going to dive into a really fun, exciting topic about leadership. Yeah. What's new and going on in your world?
Well, I think since the last time I was here, I changed directions a little bit. I'm focusing more on coaching now than I was before. I was a fractional COO. I think when we were talking before, fractional OS integrator, doing that work, great work, loved it. While I was doing that work, I found myself doing a lot of coaching of the executive team, one-on-one and as a whole. I found that I like that more. There's a lot of things about being a COO that can be frustrating, time-consuming, things like that, and not necessarily fulfilling, but the coaching part really fulfilling. And I decided, because there are a lot of coaches out there, I looked at my background and the things that I know how to do well, and I'm an engineer. I've led engineering teams throughout my entire career. So I decided to focus my coaching on engineers, technical professionals. So I transformed them into effective executive leaders. And that's what I'm doing now. It's going okay. I really love it. And that's what's new.
Well, absolutely love it. You know what, Damon? I don't think I asked Ron this question last time you were on. And so, Ron, forgive me if I've asked you this in the past, but Damon, I'm going to go there. You ready? Ron, you sitting down? You ready for this one?
Do it.
This has got something to do with music, doesn't it?
Ron, no, not this. He knows about that. Now, you're a South Jersey guy, if I remember. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
So, growing up in South Jersey, Camden, are you Camden area?
Yep. Yeah, you got it.
So when you were a little guy growing up in South Jersey, great cheesesteaks, by the way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who was your hero? Who did you look up to? Who did you admire? Who's like a great role model for you when you were a little guy growing up in South Jersey?
You know, I told you this before. I had a close family friend that we called Uncle Still. I know we talked about Uncle Still on the last show. So you could go back and look at that, but I'll give you another answer too. I was a science fiction geek and nerd, man, and Star Trek. Loved Star Trek. Captain Kirk. Loved Captain Kirk. I wanted to be Captain Kirk.
Well, who did? You know, Damon, you wanted to be Spock, right?
Yeah, I would definitely be Spock.
Damon would make a mean Spock. So Captain Kirk could. All right. So you know what? I went back. You must have been on a few times because I went back and I'm like, I don't think I asked you. So all right. Yeah. So Uncle and then Captain Kirk. Great answer. Absolutely love. You know, because people call me. You know, it's Kurt, but people still call me Captain Kirk all the time. So that resonates with me, Ryan. So all right. Thank you for sharing that. So again, just for folks that are catching you for the first time. Thank you for serving our country proudly. You're a naval veteran, and tell us a little bit about your Navy background and how we're going to roll up to how you're applying your Navy experience as a fighter pilot into your leadership coaching practice now. And also, if anybody saw the movie Top Gun, like, weren't you? You're like one of those. Like, were you Goose or like were you one of those dudes or what?
So I was a naval flight officer, so the guy in the back, so Maverick Goose, right? I was Goose in the back, and I flew S-3 Vikings, which is not a sexy airplane that they didn't make any movies about. I was lucky enough to go to test pilot school and actually become a flight instructor in test pilot school. But that aircraft picture that you see on my LinkedIn profile, which I've changed a little bit, that's actually me in the back of a test pilot school FA-18, which is great. So hard for me to sum up an entire naval career in a couple of sentences, but I'll tell you this, Kurt. As a young guy, I want to be an astronaut, and I looked, how do I become an astronaut? I ended up, long story as to how I wanted to go and do all of that and how I accomplished it. But I ended up going to the Naval Academy, got accepted to the Naval Academy, graduated from high school, 17 years old, 3 weeks out of high school. I ended up going to the Naval Academy prep school first. So I basically had to enlist in the Navy, go to this prep school, spend a year there, and then spend 4 years at the Naval Academy. Went to flight school after that, did a whole bunch of great things, including flying in the first Gulf War, went to test pilot school. I actually became a candidate to be an astronaut. I got disqualified when I got to NASA. Spent the rest of my career in the Navy doing program management and acquisition, which is working with defense contractors on naval aircraft systems and aircraft weapon and sensor systems. And I also worked on satellite systems. I will stop there. So I had a great career. I had a great career. Loved it. I tell you what, I got the most out of that. I got to see the world. I got to see a whole bunch of things that I dreamed of seeing when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used to look at atlases and encyclopedias. So I'd go to an atlas and I'd spin it and I'd find a country. Then I'd go to the encyclopedia and read everything I could about that country. And I remember seeing the pyramids of Egypt and going, wow, I would really love to see those one day. And so when I got to see them because of the Navy, special moments, the Eiffel Tower, all sorts of other things. And so I owe a lot to the Navy, but mostly I owe relationships. The people that I met in the Navy are people who are and remained my closest friends to this day.
Guys, absolutely.
Awesome.
So bachelor's degree from the academy, master's degree, flew all over the world. I mean, just what an amazing, incredible experience. So for young folks out there that are considering going into the service or a career direction, Ron, do you recommend folks going into the Navy or what?
Absolutely, but it's got to be for you. I wanted to be an astronaut, but I wanted to serve my country. Even at the time where the country could have been nicer to people that look like me, I still wanted to serve because in terms of looking at history and looking what people sacrificed and understanding what people sacrificed for us to be able to live the way we do, I wanted to be a part of that. Yeah. So if you really want service, if you really want to serve the country, then find the best way to do it. The Navy, of course, is a great way to do it, but everybody has to find their own way and what works best for them.
Yeah, great answer. So again, thank you for serving. God bless you. And everybody out there, do yourself a favor, connect with Ron on LinkedIn. He puts out great content, wonderful information. And just bottom line, he's just a great guy. Right, Damon?
He's got a weekly newsletter. And yeah, I agree 100%, man. I just feel fortunate to be able to hang with Ron once in a while, personally in real life, and to get to do this. But I gotta say, Ron, your background image is rocking it right now.
Thanks. Yeah, I made a little change to it based on some recommendations. I think I told you guys before, a couple of years ago, somebody recommended that I get rid of the airplane, and then my man Kurt here, calls me and says, "Hey, what happened to the airplane?"
Yeah,
I was telling a bunch of people, I always pull up your profile for people to show them, hey, this is a great profile. And I pulled it up and the airplane was gone. And
so Dave, we've been doing LinkedIn webinars for years, COVID, before COVID. And when I met Ron, I like that. Like I religiously put up Ron's profile for every LinkedIn webinar that I did. In one webinar, I go to pull it up and I'm like, man, wait till you check out this banner. This is like textbook. This is perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, you changed it.
But still, I think this is actually an improvement.
This is better. Yeah.
It really looks crisp.
Before, Ron, if you remember, you had the little arrow and you go, this is Lieutenant Ron Higgs, or you had me, or you had the little something there. Remember that?
Yeah, I did. And I tried to work that in there. It just didn't work with this one. And I had a little help with this one. You know how it is. Fiverr. I'm like, here's what I want, and I
Yeah.
got a whole bunch of different ones. I tried doing it myself, and I was like, what are you doing? Right. This is to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I got. And I'm very pleased.
Well, I'll tell you what, man,
the airplane, which is awesome.
It is epic. I mean that since look at how cool that is, and just think, and again, like the closest I've come is watching the movie Top Gun, and just when you think of like how fierce that is, and there's Ron right there. So again, when you're looking for somebody of integrity, you're looking for coaching, boy, this is, and we're going to dive into leadership lessons, and Ron is not the guy that talks the talk, or doesn't talk the talk, he walks the walk. So I got that straight. So, all right, Ron, we're going to talk about transforming engineers into like high level leaders. And you're going to share a little bit. You've got a keynote coming up, so we don't want to steal all the thunder, right? But we're going to share some leadership lessons that you've learned along your journey in aviation. Let's go there. Why don't you start with us? Where's a good place to start? What's like the first lesson that you would like to share with folks?
Well, the first one, and I'll equate this to aviation, and what I realized later in life was looking back and reflecting on how I do things, why I do things the way that I do. I realized that aviation had a big influence on the way I think and the way I do things. And so, hey, how can I better articulate that? So the first thing is understanding the mission. I think all of us as veterans take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So ultimately, that's what the mission is. The military does a really good job of explaining to us, at least in the Navy, hey, this is the mission of the Navy. This is the Navy. This is the mission of all these different parts of the Navy. Because you remember the Navy, we have SEALs, we have ships, we have submarines, we have amphibious ships, we have all sorts of different things. We have aircraft, we have all sorts of things. So knowing the missions of naval aviation, knowing the mission of that carrier battle group that I'm in, knowing the mission of the carrier itself, and then all in the air wing that's on the carrier, all of the different squadrons, and then my aircraft. So the military does a good job at alignment to the mission. So every time I launched off on the mission, whether from land or on a ship, I could equate that and I could track that and align it back to supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. And so one of the first things that I did when I go somewhere new is like, well, what's the mission? I really try to understand the mission statements. And a lot of people don't really say, sometimes it's fluff. We've all seen mission statements that are really short and general, mission statements that are, too long to put on a t-shirt or something like that. But ultimately, how many times have you been in a place and had people look at each other and go, what are we doing? And not understanding what they're doing and how it aligns to the mission overall. So that's one of the first things I learned in the military was to align all the actions, micro actions, everything that we're doing to the mission of the company. That was number one.
Let's dive. If you don't mind, I want to dive into that. I'm a mission statement junkie. I love geeking out on this statement. I know you are as well.
Yep.
Ron, what does it, if you're comfortable with me going there, I don't want to stump you or put you on the spot, but what do you feel designates a great mission statement?
I think it has to be short and impactful and really describe at the heart, what are you trying to do? And it has to be more than money, right? We're trying to make money here. We're trying to make a profit. Well, that's not really what you're doing. So for me, I transform process and data-driven engineers into effective executive leaders. That's pretty clear, right? For me personally, for my coach.
Drop the mic, right? Clear, concise. Like we always say, like, hey, if you're on an elevator, the door opens, I'm about to walk off. I say, hey, Ron, what do you do? And you, like, when I leave, I'm like, oh, well, I know exactly what you do, right?
Pretty clear.
Right.
So I think clarity is number one. I don't think anybody should read it and go, yeah, I'm not really sure what that means.
No jargon, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It should just be plain and simple.
Yeah.
Impactful and something you truly believe. And if you want to change the world, that's great. We want to change the world. How do you want to change the world?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Just jotting down some notes. Okay. So for friends out there who are maybe like, gee, I haven't thought about a mission statement. We don't have a mission statement. Maybe that's why people are rowing in different directions.
Yeah.
Do you have advice, suggestions on how people could kind of get that process started, especially for folks out there like mission statement? We don't like, that's corny, that's goofy. Like, how do you help that company, that leader, really embrace and own their mission statement?
Sometimes you just have to start asking questions. You ever hear of that ask why 5 times?
Yeah, the 5 whys. Yeah.
5 whys, yeah.
Right. And when somebody gets annoyed and like when you get an emotional reaction, there you've got it. Because seriously, I did this to a nonprofit. I just kept asking the CEO. I'm like, well, why? And I asked him why again. And he just slammed his head down. He goes, because of this. I go, that's it. He's like, you ask a lot of questions. I mean, he was annoyed, but I kind of warned him at the beginning. It's like, you're going to be annoyed.
Get him annoyed. That's the key to a good mission statement, right? Get him annoyed. Right.
Yeah. Well, and
but it invokes some kind of emotion.
Yes.
Right. Maybe not annoyance, maybe joy, maybe something like that. But maybe that's the way I ask it. It usually ends up with somebody being annoyed, but there's the discovery process and going, yeah, that's it. That's what we're all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting to that level too, because you have to ask those questions to get down to that level. And why are you really doing this? Not just, well, why? Like you said, we want to make money. Well, that doesn't make sense. You're not doing stuff just for money. Well, we want to help people. Well, who do you want to help? How do you want to help? Why do you want to do that? It's those mission statements are so important, because then that becomes the rallying cry for everyone. Right. And when you hire somebody, you go, this is our mission statement. Does it connect with you on an emotional level or not? And that's should be one of your main hiring points.
And when you're working for a team, I think it's important, especially in teams, to let people think for themselves, even think, write, share, right? Think about it, write it down, share it with everybody else, because I'm sure you've heard, and I can't remember the name of the bias this is, but when you ask the CEO, hey, what do you think the mission really is? And they start talking, what they say maybe influences everybody else around the table. So if everybody sort of writes down what they want and then reads it, throws it out there, they're not necessarily influenced by a specific person. So if you're in the team concept, it's really important to get everybody thinking for themselves and see where the common themes are.
Yep. Love it. Okay, excellent. So starting point for leadership lessons from your aviation career is start with a solid mission, like you just said, Damon, like that rally cry, war cry, however you want to describe it. Like, how are you getting everybody pumped up, juiced up to make the world a better place? Ron, what is number 2?
Well, number 2 has to do with thinking about what if. So it's fairly easy, and I'm not going to downplay this, and I'm just oversimplifying this, to learn how to fly an airplane. A lot of our time spent in flight school was talking about contingencies. What are you going to do? So if you're in a little small single engine aircraft, what are you going to do if you lose your engine right now? What are you going to do if you run out of fuel? What are you going to do if the weather's bad at your landing destination and all of this stuff? So it's like a what if, because remember, when you go flying, there are a bunch of variables over which you have no control. You can't control the weather. Sometimes the aircraft doesn't cooperate, which means you may lose a system or two, the electrical system of the airplane, or something may go wrong. Air traffic control may throw your flight plan out of the window by telling you to do something else based on some other traffic that's around. Weather certainly could cause you to maybe not be able to get to your landing destination, not to be able to see, maybe have to divert and do all these other things. So we spend a lot of time thinking about what if. So when things do go wrong, as they inevitably do, it's expect the unexpected, more or less. Because how many people have you seen in your career? You have a plan, and then things go according to plan, and then they freeze. I mean, they can't handle it. They freeze up. They're like, oh my goodness, the plan's out the window. What are we going to do now? Well, you should have thought about that. I think it's an Eisenhower quote. It's like planning. I think he said plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Yeah.
So again, learning how to figure out, there are a lot of variables over which you have no control. So let's think about this. What if we lose an engine? What if we get bad weather? What if we do a bird strike? What if this? And we look at this in terms of risk. So risk has two pieces, the severity and probability of occurrence. And so you look at it and go, well, the probability that we'll be hit by lightning is actually high. But severity, if we do get hit by lightning, aircraft get hit by lightning all the time. You have all these systems to keep the aircraft flying and all sorts of things, right? So it's actually not as severe as you think it would. But an engine fire, pretty severe, but might not occur. Those are rare. So you're thinking, hey, what if you've got emergency procedures and all sorts of things? Just start thinking about all the things that could go wrong. So I translated that in leadership roles to, what if I lost my number one engineer? And as a COO, what if we lost our top salesperson and they took some relationships with him? What if we lost this client that represents a significant percentage of our business? Maybe we should do it. Maybe we should spread out. Maybe we shouldn't have all our eggs in one basket. So again, thinking like that internally and externally, right? What can happen externally? What kind of, taking a look at politics, what kind of laws can they pass that can have an impact on how we do business? What if this competitor starts doing this first before we do? Whatever it is. So the bottom line is just start that kind of what if thinking. And I think it just builds resilience for when things inevitably don't go according to plan.
Love it.
Yeah, those contingencies are so important to think through them. And in your example of flying a plane, because you said it's easy to fly a plane relatively, but it's planning for the contingencies is where the value comes.
Yeah, off of an aircraft carrier in what we call blue water ops, which means you're too far away from land to go find to land someplace, to land anywhere but the carrier. So lots of things you have to think about in terms of, because your airport is moving and you may fly 1,000 miles, 500 miles away from the airport and come back and it's not where it's supposed to be. Things like that.
Well, I think Ron is still the only person I know that's landed on a carrier on fire.
Well, actually, that was not a carrier. So my aircraft
the fire was not on the carrier.
Not on a carrier. Yeah, that was on land.
Well, okay.
Yeah, hairy moments, but 2 engine aircraft, 1 engine on fire. Awesome.
All right. So what happened?
Let's see. We had a generator. First sign was the generator stopped working on one of the engines. So it's like, well, that's weird. The generator just tripped offline. Let's try to do the emergency procedure, which is reset it, and it wouldn't reset. And it's like, oh, well, that's odd. And hey, let's look out to the right side, and I'm on the right seat where the engine is. It's like, oh, hey, I know why the generator is not working, because it's on fire. So
right under your fuel source.
So
and how many feet in the air are you?
We're at altitude on our way down. Well, let's say we're 20,000 feet heading down the Key West, actually. So we had to execute some emergency procedures and land immediately. But that was but it's the training. We train for it all the time. I mean, because in the flight simulator, you could do all these things.
Yes.
The flight simulator is like, hey, you have an engine fire, and then this happens, and then that happens. So it was, I'm not going to say it was routine, but we did everything that we were supposed to do and landed safe.
Well, and that's how this translates so well to leadership, because when you have thought about these things, when you have planned for these things, and then they do happen, you go, all right, I've kind of been here before. I know what we need to do. We're going to do A, B, and C, rather than go, oh, heck, what are we going to do now? Right. You take away that, oh, heck, what are we going to do now stuff. Right. And you go, okay, we're going to try this, and if it doesn't work, we're going to try that. We're going to try that. Well, you've got steps to follow at that point. Yeah. And in when you talk about people, clients, external factors that affect a business and a leadership team, these are huge things because it can put you out of business, or it can just it can launch the business actually if something happens like that. And you can discover opportunities that you couldn't realize before.
Yeah, another thing that it's unfortunate, but it does happen. When you have to have plans for when things go really, really wrong. So one of the places when my very first consulting gig, I asked, it was a brewery, and I asked, what if somebody gets hurt here? What do you guys do? Silence. What if somebody gets killed on the job? Accidentally, there's an industrial accident, they get hurt. What's the first phone call you make? To who?
Yeah.
So we had something in the Navy called the mishap plan, and unfortunately, it's what happens when you lose an aircraft and people, or both. And it's a notebook. You just open it up, but it says step 1, do this, because that is such an emotional event.
Yeah,
you can't afford to make it up on the spot when there's a lot of emotion involved.
Yeah.
So again, some pre-planning. Think about this. You have the manufacturing audience. What if somebody gets hurt on the manufacturing floor, injured? What happens? What's the first phone call you make? Who lets their family know? Do you talk to the new? You've got people in the news that are scanning the first responder frequencies. They may show up and ask what happens. And if you say, hey, well, Damon, Damon got hurt on the job, Damon's family may see that on TV before somebody's had a chance to call him, and you don't want that to happen. So again, there's things that again, I think about, and I brought with me from the Navy and aviation into the corporate world that has helped me and guided me along. And that kind of thinking is one of them.
Yeah. Man, good stuff here. And so, man, just think, and it's one thing if you make a mistake on the shop floor or whatever, but being 10, 20, 30,000 feet in the air, of course that movie came to mind, Captain Sully, when he landed in the Hudson River, like just being, like you said, like you have to be trained to be Johnny on the spot. Like you have split seconds and lives are at stake, so it's a lot different at a manufacturing floor. But, you're bringing up a good point because, for folks that are catching this, maybe they're catching it down the road. There was a big explosive tragedy, I think, last week at a large manufacturing plant. So you just don't know those contingencies. Ron, question I have for you is like, gosh, you can run through, hundreds or thousands of contingencies or what ifs, right? How do you help your clients determine the top important, crucial what ifs? Does that make sense?
It does, but it just depends on what industry they are and what's important to them and what their priorities are. Mm-hmm. So if you're a marketing agency, I think it would be different from a manufacturing agency,
right?
Which is different from someone doing sort of retail electronics or even coaching like I'm doing, right? Or accountants or things like that. So what is important? What do they consider important? And I think if I'll bring up Eisenhower again, that Eisenhower matrix, urgent, important. Yep. And I think Covey has I think Stephen Covey has a version of that matrix as well. But the urgent and important and how to prioritize. The thing that I found the most difficult about that, and it's a great matrix and it's a great way to make decisions, is that everyone has to have the same definition of urgent and important.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I worked for someone, a CEO who everything was urgent. And then when everything becomes urgent, it's like, well, we're redoing the website and our timeline is, 6 months. How is anything attached to the redesign of our website urgent? It's like, we got to stop everything we're doing and we got to focus on this now. Really? I mean, that's not urgent. And so where he thought something was urgent and the rest of us are like, I don't see how that's urgent. So again, if everybody doesn't have that definition,
right,
same definition, there could be issues. So originally what you asked me, again, that's how it relates to those problems. So what do they define as urgent? What do they define as important? And every organization is going to be different.
I love that. So, all right, guys. Hey, we're at top of the hour. If you're just joining us, we're here with our dear friend Ron Higgs. Ron, we have a question here, and for friends out there taking notes, number one. So Ron's running through the leadership lessons that he's learned through aviation and what he does for high level coaching for his executives that he works with, particularly in engineering. And so, number one is mission. Have that clear, concise mission statement, that rallying cry. What are you guys doing to make the world a better place? And number two, we're diving into risk management. Ron, we have a question here from our friend Naval. As an engineer, my main challenge is communicating technical ideas clearly to non-technical teams like finance, marketing, sales. How can I teach professionals, or how do you teach professionals to make their communication more business friendly? Thank you, Mal. That's a great question.
That is a great question. It's one of the biggest challenges we see with engineers in being able to do that. And Amal is ahead of the curve because he actually realizes that. And some people don't, where they launch into technical speak, because in a leadership role, what you have to do is learn to communicate, and you have to be able to communicate very complex concepts in simple terms. So for me, I learned this is a personal story on how I learned it, right? Because I come from a relatively uneducated family. And so as an engineer, if my mother or my grandmother asked me what I was doing, what I was working on, I owed them a better answer than saying, you wouldn't understand. I would never say that to them. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I need to be able to explain this to my mom. I need to be able to explain this to my grandma. Like my mother was a medical assistant. So she had that education. My grandmother at the time was uneducated. Like little black girls at the time didn't get to go to school when she was that age. And I had to be able to explain it to them. And that's how I learned to simplify complex concepts. What Amal just hit on there is one, being able to simplify those concepts. Two, being able to understand big picture wise the rest of your stakeholders, especially the non-technical stakeholders. Because in a leadership role, now you're working not just with engineers, you're working with finance people, HR people, production people, everybody else. Mm-hmm. HR folks, as soon as you start speaking all the tech stuff, you're going to tune you out. So one, you need to figure out how to understand those concepts. But the real success is being able to look at that person and saying, oh, you're a finance person. This is what finance really needs to know, and explaining it to them in terms that they can understand and what matters to them as a finance person. Mm-hmm. That's huge.
That's huge.
Okay, Damon. Huge double. Get your microphone out, right?
Yeah.
This is a major drop the mic moment right here, man. This might have been a big.
I'm throwing it.
I don't dare. Mine. I can't afford a new one. So
yours is heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an old
one. I
one.
love when Damon throws that. So we need to take a pause right here, because what you just said, I'm guilty as charged, where like I struggle to explain people like what I just did it yesterday. You wouldn't understand. Like kudos to you, Ron. And again, I started off the show, when you Google the word integrity, you're going to see Ron Higgs, because he has the wherewithal. He has the intelligence, the wisdom to say, like, I need to explain this, that my grandmother understands this. Dude, I can't tell you how much I admire, and like, thank you for just helping me, because I want my mother, my grandmother's gone. I want to be able to explain this to people that won't understand in their terms. So brilliant advice for Amal. I absolutely love that. Like, what is the motivation for the person in finance? What's the person in marketing? What's the person in sales? And again, like, sometimes it's hard for us to speak their language. Right. If they can't speak ours, we can't assume like, well, I know how to speak marketing, or I know how to speak sales if I'm in engineering. But I think what I love what you're saying, Ryan, is come together and like, let's speak each other's language so we can mutually understand this. Brilliant.
And too often, I think you have those silos in companies too. It's like, well, wait a minute, we're sales. We don't talk to the engineering people. And especially if we can go down a huge rabbit hole here, but especially if the two people leading those departments don't get along.
Oh,
If you've
right,
got
right. They're like, right.
at the executive level,
Right. You know,
right? And those two people don't like each other. They're like, hey, I saw you talking to one of those finance. We don't talk to finance guys. I mean, I've seen this. I have seen this in lots of places, and it's ridiculous.
Yes, it's
yes.
Unfortunately, too frequently. And you know what? And I'm going to go back to your number one, and that's why when you have that rally cry, when you have that saga, we had a gentleman on here, Damon, that taught us about the word saga. And the companies that thrive and separate themselves, what he described, and he studied like cultures, like, company, like people from thousands of years ago that would travel overseas. And like, why did they thrive? Because they had a common saga and they could overcome these challenges, whether this, that, the other thing, where it's not ego or you hurt my feelings, or I don't like so-and-so down the hall in sales. So it goes back to your number one, is having that mission statement, that war cry that everybody can really come around, right? So
we're all working on the same thing. We're all trying to accomplish the same mission.
We're all rowing in the same direction. So Ahmad, great question. Boy, keep the questions coming. Appreciate it. We're here with Ron Higgs. Connect with Ron on LinkedIn. Ron, so we've got clear, concise mission statement. We're talking about the risk management piece. Number three, let's dive into number three.
Yeah, number three is, feedback and continuous learning. So flights have several, or let's say 4 parts. There's planning, which we cover with the mission, right? Because we know we do planning and we brief, that's communicating what we're doing on this mission, and we fly, then we come back and debrief. So there's that cycle of plan, brief, fly, debrief. So every flight, before you go out, you brief it in depth. Who's going to do what, how it's going to be done. You fly, you come back, and you go over the flight. Even if it went textbook perfectly, you still go over it. Why? To capture lessons learned. One, about the thing that we're doing, whatever it is, and then about ourselves. So we get constant feedback on performance right there while it's still fresh. Hey, you didn't do well here, or you did really well here. You didn't do well. And people start to create that culture where people crave feedback, because that's your opportunity to do it. So feedback on the flight, it doesn't matter. Everybody's equal in the debrief. So if I'm flying with the admiral and the admiral did something wrong, it is my responsibility to tell the admiral what he did wrong. Right? Or something like that. So you can't be intimidated by rank. You can't everybody kind of throws their rank and ego out the door, and you have a debrief and talk about how things went. Capture lessons learned, learn how to be better. Because what we also did in military units is we're only at a unit for a finite amount of time, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is.
Yep.
As soon as you come in, you're being trained to replace someone. And after a little bit of time, you are training your replacement. So you can't stay stagnant. You can't have the attitude just like, well, if that person's smarter than me, they might take my job one day. So I have to sort of hold them at arm's length and not tell them what to do. Well, when you go in a military unit, you're moving up the ranks.
Yeah.
So somebody is definitely coming to take your job, as you are going to take somebody else's job. But we depend on each other for our lives. So we want people to be as good as they can possibly be, because that's the good of the unit. Everybody sort of defaults to what's best for the unit. So we help each other become better, and that's part of it. So again, that whole piece of continuous learning and feedback, really important.
I like that, because that's one of the things that's really cool about the military, right? And this, I think, is something that employers should realize about people in the military, is that we're continuously developing people, continuously figuring out, okay, I'm getting up to speed on this position. And then I know, because in the military, I'm going to be training somebody else, because I don't stay here forever. It's not a forever kind of thing. They will be moving on. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge thing, to develop those skills of being able to learn quickly, assimilate with the group, to be able to really understand how things are working in here, and then ultimately train others.
Exactly. And there's kind of frighteningly little time between the time you start training other people. to come in as well. Just when you think you got it wired, it's almost time for you to go, and move on to the next thing. And that was a difficult part of my transition during my first job. I just would give people feedback, and I guess they didn't like it.
Well, there's, man, just major drop the mic
Yes,
for me
yes.
again, because it's not a matter of like, there's no fear of you being replaced, because you are going to be replaced.
Yes.
It's not a matter if, it's just when.
Man.
And I think that, good of the unit and alignment of the mission are two things that I've got
Right.
done. And again, just, gosh, as leaders, so much easier said than done. And when you have employees, when you have staff, and, everybody's kind of moving and rowing in different directions, it is challenging to pull all that together. But Ron, absolutely love this. So it's like really focusing on the feedback side. It's the process and the people, right? Those two.
Yes, for sure. I did. I'll give you an example if we have time.
Yeah.
There's a place that I worked as a COO, and we had a project. It's like, hey, let's take a look at this project. How did it go? We closed it out and we finished it. Like, let's go back and take a look at how we did. Turns out, we charged the client $15,000 for this project. Turns out it cost us $45,000.
No.
Did all the math. And so we were able to identify, okay, well, here are some errors maybe in the proposal process. Here are some errors in the charging, how people are charging their time. Here's some errors here. So it was like, and they had never done this before. And it's time to point out, it's like, we can't keep doing business this way, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to be a company if we keep doing business this way. So what needs to change as a result of this? And lots of changes came out of that. We redid the whole proposal process, got people a little bit more motivated to charge their time, because people, you charge your time to different projects, and people say, well, I don't have time to figure out that. Well, it's like, well, let's incentivize them to do so.
Yeah.
So there's things, and then the CEO liked to work on projects too. And it's like, okay, well, your billable rate is $1,000 an hour now. So let's take that into account when you want to work on a project. So there are lots of things that came out of that just by doing a postmortem on one project. We were able to go through and change several processes that led to better outcomes in the future.
Wow, a $30,000 upside down, and just think of
3x.
Think of all the profit opportunity that you created with future projects because of just pausing and saying, "Hey, we better take a peek at that one." So, Damon, how's this question? Do we have a good question here for Ron?
Yeah, it says, "Hey, Ron, how to convince experienced managers as a budding leader in a structured industry? If I propose a plan to work out, they are reluctant to accept even after submitting the supporting documents to prove the plan is valid. How to tackle them?" That is a good question.
Marvin, thank you for what a great question that is. So thanks, guys. Excellent questions. Keep them coming. We've got Ron Higgs here. Ron, what do you say for our dear friend Arvin?
I don't know if I could give him a good answer, because that really all depends on the culture of that organization. So are you in one of those cultures where it seems like he's proposing up, people are reluctant to accept it? It's like, well, do they think for some reason you haven't proven yourself? Are they now? I will tell you, I was maybe in a similar situation, and this is what I did. I got stakeholder buy-in. So before I went to my boss with that plan, I went to everybody else and said, "Hey, is this going to work? Is this going to work? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Because I really think we can make a huge change here that's going to save us a lot of time and a lot of money, and be more beneficial for the client." Right. So look at all the stakeholders. I went to the contracts people. It's like, "Hey, is this going to work?" I went to the other engineering groups. It's like, "Hey, is this going to work?" I went to management group. "Hey, is this going to work?" Or management group, sort of in another division. Then I went to my boss and said, "Hey, I have an idea." Mapped it all out. I was able to answer every question that he asked because I anticipated what he was going to ask. And he goes, well, what did the finance people say? What did the contracts people say? What do you think the contracts people will say? Well, I know what they're going to say because I went and asked them. Right. What do you think this group is going to say? I know what they're going to say because I went and asked them. And he goes, and my boss, you know, it was very thorough before I even went to him. And he said, okay, let's take it up to my boss. He goes, okay, let's take it up to my boss. And we took it up to the next level.
Right.
Had that same conversation, took it up as many levels as it did. And it never took more than one meeting to get buy-in because I did all of the legwork up front, anticipated the questions, and talked with all the stakeholders. So they all knew it was coming.
Gosh,
I don't know if that helps you.
Oh, that's great advice. It's
brilliant.
Great advice.
Absolutely
Great
brilliant.
advice.
And this is a guy, and Ron, I believe you were at Boeing, weren't you?
I have worked at Boeing, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you know, this is a guy, you know, like, again, doesn't talk the talk, walks the walk.
Yeah.
The guy, you know, naval experience, worked at Boeing, vast experience here. So, Ron, brilliant advice.
Yeah.
I guess, Damon, my response to Arvind is I can't match Ron because, like, you know, who can match Ron?
Stop.
I would just do what Damon and what our wives do. When they want something done, they plant the seed as if it's our idea, and then we feel good about it. They're like,
Yeah.
you know, hey, should we get a new car? Or, hey, should we do something in the yard? Hey, you know, then they make it think it's our idea. Then they, you know, right, Damon, is that how that works?
Yeah, that works.
That actually is brilliant advice. It's more brilliant what I could have ever come up with. And I usually say this, you know what visionaries are? Everybody knows who the visionary is, right? The visionaries are all the idea people and all the people with the ideas. But there's some visionaries who are like stronger visionaries than others. Right. And so you've got those visionaries that it has to be there. That some of them welcome other ideas. Some of them are like, no, it's got to be my idea. I mean, they want a quarter market on ideas. And that's how you deal with those folks. It's like, oh, I got a really strong visionary. Okay, so now I have to convince the visionary. I have to do to the visionary what my wife does to me is convince me that it's good.
That's right. Because I won't speak for you guys. I'm just not the sharpest tool in the shed, and so that's what happens. But hey, Arvind says a big thank you for the insights. Again, Arvind, shoot Ron, connect with Ron.
Connect with me, Arvind.
So great questions, guys. Ron, we're going to start winding down. Any other thoughts, tips, suggestions? Again, we're covering the clear, concise mission. We want to really dive into that risk management. We've got the third component is like getting good constructive feedback. Is our system and our process working well? Do we have the right people, right team, right people in the right positions? What else? Anything as you want to close us out? What else would you share with our friends?
You know, as a coach, I'll just say this. Sometimes it's just great to talk to someone and get a different perspective. And I think most of my value as a coach is just being that outsider because I say, hey, I have a dispassionate view of what's going on. When I was a fractional COO, I would say, hey, I have a dispassionate view of the company. I look at the company for what it is, and I don't necessarily I haven't been a part of the building of the company. Not necessarily concerned about relationships with people and all that stuff. I'm just telling you what I see from a dispassionate view. And I think coaches can help. And I really love talking to people, even if you're out there. When I have conversations with people, I usually ask, hey, what are you worried about? Like those questions are great for me. So now I know in my marketing and in my coaching, hey, let me make sure that I can address this in my coaching. Hey, I hadn't thought about that. Let me make room for it. And for my marketing, I can make my marketing stronger. That says, hey, are you experiencing these problems? Because I do. It's important for all of us to keep up on what's really going on, what's on these people's minds. So again, I appreciate those questions because now that helps me learn what's on my prospective clients' minds. So reach out. I'm always happy to talk to someone. I've got a 30-minute slot I call it the discovery call. Just talk about coaching, talk about some of the issues you have. And what I get out of that, again, is keeping up to date on the problems and issues that my prospective clients are facing.
Absolutely love it. Damon, what are your thoughts? I know like you two are, I'm a little jealous. I'm just like Dan Bigger. I'm a little jealous. I have not gotten together with Ron. You guys are buddies. You catch sporting events together. What are your thoughts with Ron's wisdom, his brilliance, his integrity? What do you think?
I really, really, Ron, thanks for being here today. And I always enjoy getting your perspective, because the Navy, your own background, and in addition to the Navy, really helps you when you're going to be a coach to these executive leaders and understanding some of the things that they can do. It's really, really great to be able to spend some time on this.
Same here. I love hanging out with you two guys. Kurt, can't wait to meet you in person. Damon, I hope we get to have a beer soon. So
yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys inviting me.
Well, we will make that happen soon. So, Ron, hang out with us for 1 minute. So, everybody, thank you. How about, you know what? God, Damon, we've gone for 50 minutes. 50 minutes exactly right now. So, if you've been hanging out with us for 50 minutes, and especially if you've been sitting, it's a great time to stand up and stretch. And how about give a big round of applause for our dear friend Ron Higgs for absolutely crushing it. All sorts of drop the mic moments. As Damon always loves to say, anything that you caught or anything that you missed, if you came in a little bit late, man, hit the little, I would say rewind button, hit that little button to pull back to the beginning. Ron just dropped all sorts of wonderful information. Connect with Ron on LinkedIn. And guys, I just want to wish you an amazing, incredible rest of your week. Go out and be, how do you like the balloons, Damon? You like that?
Yes.
3 day balloons.
Go out and be someone's inspiration, just like our dear friend Ron, and you too can make the world a better place. So we'll see you guys Friday with another amazing guest. And Ron, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks for having me, gents.